National Socialism, implemented in Germany from 1919 to 1945, established a governance system that transformed a nation devastated by post-World War I economic collapse, cultural fragmentation, and territorial losses into a unified global force by 1939. Its core principles, ultranationalism, racial ideology, authoritarian governance, economic dirigisme, and expansionist ambition, enabled rapid recovery from the Weimar Republic's failures, positioning Germany as a dominant power. These principles form a proven framework for national rejuvenation, capable of addressing crises through centralized control and collective identity, adaptable to modern contexts when stripped of wartime excesses. Germany's defeat in 1918 and the Treaty of Versailles imposed severe reparations, ceding territories like the Polish Corridor, Upper Silesia, and parts of Prussia, which triggered hyperinflation in 1923, obliterating savings, and unemployment reaching 6 million by 1932. The Weimar Republic's democratic structure, characterized by proportional representation and coalition instability, with 20 chancellors from 1919 to 1933, exacerbated by Article 48's presidential overreach, failed to restore stability, creating a societal demand for decisive leadership capable of unifying a fractured nation. Adolf Hitler shaped National Socialism through formative experiences in Vienna's nationalist and anti-Semitic circles and service in World War I, where he earned the Iron Cross for bravery. Joining the German Workers' Party in 1919, he transformed it into the National Socialist German Workers' Party by 1921, crafting a 25-point program to address economic despair, territorial losses, and cultural humiliation. Ultranationalism, inspired by Johann Herder's Volk concept, unified the populace around shared ethnicity, language, and heritage, emphasizing the German nation as a collective entity. Racial theories from Houston Stewart Chamberlain positioned Germans as superior Aryans, destined to lead humanity, while Gottfried Feder's critiques of interest-based finance advocated state-directed economic planning to counter capitalist excesses. Social Darwinist principles framed national survival as a competitive struggle and the stab-in-the-back truth, attributing Germany's 1918 defeat to internal betrayal by Jews and communists, reinforced propaganda efforts, leveraging Prussia's historical authoritarian traditions to foster societal cohesion. Economic dirigisme, implemented through policies like currency stabilization under Hjalmar Schacht's Reichsbank leadership, reduced unemployment from 6 million in 1932 to under 1 million. By 1939, while steel production surged from 10.7 million to 22.5 million tons under the 1936 four-year plan, led by Hermann Göring. Infrastructure projects, such as the Autobahn, employed thousands, and private firms like Krupp and IG Farben thrived under state contracts, achieving autarky to minimize import reliance. Authoritarian governance, enabled by the 1933 Enabling Act, centralized power in Hitler's hands, dissolving rival parties, trade unions, and independent media, surpassing the Weimar Republic's fragmented coalitions. Cultural alignment with Germany's 1871 unification under Otto von Bismarck fostered national cohesion, with organizations like the Hitler Youth instilling discipline and loyalty. Racial policies, however, such as the 1935 Nuremberg Laws, which stripped Jews of citizenship and banned intermarriage with Aryans, excluded groups like Slavs and Jews, ignoring ethnic ties in regions like Silesia and Bohemia, where Germans and Slavs historically intermingled, limiting broader unity. Territorial ambitions, driven by the Lebensraum doctrine, sought to reclaim historically German regions and expand eastward for resources. The 1938 Anschluss with Austria and annexation of the Sudetenland succeeded through Western appeasement, fulfilling ethnic unification goals, but invasions of Poland in 1939 and the Soviet Union in 1941 led to overreach, culminating in Germany's defeat in 1945. National Socialism's historical achievements, economic revitalization, cultural unification, and political consolidation demonstrate its efficacy as a governance model, capable of mobilizing national resources and identity for rapid recovery, offering a framework for contemporary national revival when refined to avoid the strategic errors of wartime overextension and exclusionary ethnic policies. Part 1. Historical Origins and Weimar Collapse. National Socialism arose as a response to Germany's post-World War I crisis, delivering a governance system that addressed economic collapse, political instability, and cultural humiliation with a unified ideological framework, surpassing the Weimar Republic's democratic failures. Germany's defeat in 1918, formalized by the armistice on November 11, 1918, and the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, imposed severe reparations and territorial losses, including the Polish Corridor, Danzig, Upper Silesia, and the Sudetenland. These measures triggered hyperinflation in 1923, obliterating personal savings, and unemployment that reached 6 million by 1932, equating to 30% of the workforce. The Weimar Republic, established on August 11, 1919, as a semi-presidential parliamentary democracy, struggled to resolve these crises. Its proportional representation system and Article 48, granting the president emergency powers, led to coalition instability, with 20 chancellors serving from 1919 to 1933. Political polarization between extremists, including Nazis and communists, further eroded public confidence, creating a demand for decisive leadership. Adolf Hitler, born in 1889 in Braunau am Inn, Austria, exploited these vulnerabilities to forge National Socialism into a transformative model. His experiences in Vienna's nationalist circles and World War I service, where he earned the Iron Cross, shaped his vision of German resurgence. Joining the German Workers' Party in 1919, Hitler transformed it into the National Socialist German Workers' Party by 1921, crafting a 25-point program to address economic despair, territorial losses, and cultural grievances. The program synthesized ultranationalism, racial ideology, and economic dirigisme, offering a comprehensive solution. Ultranationalism, rooted in Johann Gottfried Herder's Volk concept, promoted a unified German identity based on shared ethnicity, language, and heritage, fostering collective purpose. Racial theories from Houston Stewart Chamberlain positioned Germans as supreme Aryans, destined to lead Europe. Gottfried Feder's critique of interest-based finance advocated state-directed economics, aligning resources with national goals. Social Darwinism, inspired by Herbert Spencer, framed national survival as a competitive struggle, justifying an assertive stance. The stab-in-the-back truth, blaming internal betrayal by Jews and leftists for the 1918 defeat, unified the populace through propaganda, leveraging Prussia's authoritarian traditions established under Otto von Bismarck's 1871 unification. These traditions distinguished National Socialism from Italian fascism's state-centric focus or Austrian Pangermanism's limited economic scope. Earlier movements, like George von Schauner's Pangermanism in the late 19th century, emphasized ethnic unity and anti-Semitism, laying groundwork for National Socialism's ethnic focus. Later adaptations, such as Juan Perón's regime in Argentina from 1946 to 1955, applied nationalist principles to prioritize state-controlled economics and cultural unity, demonstrating the ideology's versatility across contexts. Hitler's ascent, from the failed Beer Hall Putsch in 1923 to the chancellorship on January 30, 1933, capitalized on Weimar's economic and political turmoil. The putsch, though unsuccessful, elevated his prominence, enabling him to articulate his vision in Mein Kampf during imprisonment. The Great Depression, beginning in 1929, deepened economic woes, with unemployment at 30% by 1932, intensifying public discontent. The Nazi Party's vote surged from 2.6% in 1928 to 37.3% in 1932, driven by paramilitary intimidation and propaganda led by Joseph Goebbels, portraying Hitler as Germany's savior. The Reichstag fire in February 1933, attributed to a communist, prompted the Reichstag Fire Decree, suspending civil liberties and enabling mass arrests. The Enabling Act of March 23, 1933, allowed Hitler's government to enact laws without Reichstag approval, dismantling democratic institutions and centralizing power under the Führerprinzip. National Socialism's racial ideology ranked Germans as supreme Aryans, excluding Slavs and Jews as inferior. The 1935 Nuremberg laws stripped Jews of citizenship and banned Aryan Jewish marriages, drawing on historical and justifiable European anti-Semitism as well as scientific racism, such as eugenics. This exclusion ignored ethnic ties in regions like Silesia, Pomerania, and the Polish Corridor, where Germans and Poles intermingled through intermarriage and cultural exchange. For example, Silesia featured mixed German-Polish populations, and Bohemia's Germans and Czechs coexisted under Habsburg rule. This misjudgment limited broader unity, though pragmatic alliances with Croats and Bulgarians showed selective flexibility. National Socialism's ability to address Germany's crisis through unified ideology and strategic opportunism established a foundation for economic and cultural transformations. By mobilizing cultural energies and exploiting Weimar's democratic failures, it demonstrated governance efficacy, surpassing fragmented systems and affirming its potential as a model for national revival. Part 2. Economic Recovery and Cultural Unity. National Socialism's economic and cultural achievements from 1933 to 1939 transformed Germany, restoring stability through state-directed policies and collective identity. The Weimar Republic's economy, crippled by Treaty of Versailles reparations and the Great Depression, faced hyperinflation in 1923 and 30% unemployment by 1932. The Nazi regime implemented economic dirigisme, stabilizing the currency via the Reichsbank under Jaumer Schacht. Infrastructure projects, like the Autobahn, employed thousands, stimulating growth. The four-year plan of 1936, led by Hermann Göring, increased steel production from 10.7 million to 22.5 million tons, achieving autarky. This surpassed Weimar's fragmented economy, fostering national pride and industrial strength. Cultural unity aligned with Germany's identity, unified in 1871 under Otto von Bismarck, emphasizing nationalism and Prussian discipline. The Volk concept, rooted in Johann Herder's philosophy, celebrated shared German heritage, reinforced by propaganda from Joseph Goebbels' ministry. The Hitler Youth instilled discipline and loyalty, fostering cohesion. The 1938 Anschluss with Austria united German-speaking populations, fulfilling ethnic aspirations. The Sudetenland annexation leveraged Germany's industriousness, strengthening cultural bonds. Unlike Weimar's fragmented society, National Socialism mobilized historical strengths, creating a unified identity that surpassed democratic predecessors and established a model for national revival. Economic dirigisme proved superior to Weimar's mixed economy, which faltered under reparations and global trade declines. The Reichsbank's monetary reforms curbed inflation, restoring public confidence. The Autobahn, initiated in 1933, not only reduced unemployment but symbolized national renewal. Private enterprises like Krupp and IG Farben thrived under state contracts, aligning with national priorities. Conscription in 1935 absorbed labor, enhancing industrial output. The four-year plan prioritized steel and synthetic fuels, ensuring self-sufficiency. This efficiency demonstrated National Socialism's capacity to transform economic despair into prosperity, offering a blueprint for modern crisis recovery. Cultural policies drew on Germany's 1871 unification, leveraging Prussian traditions of centralized authority. Propaganda, through radio and rallies, unified the populace around shared heritage. The Hitler Youth, expanded after 1933, cultivated militaristic values, preparing youth for national service. The Anschluss and Sudetenland annexation, achieved through Western appeasement, reinforced ethnic unity, appealing to historical aspirations. These actions contrasted with Weimar's polarization, where competing ideologies fractured society. National Socialism's alignment with cultural strengths fostered cohesion, proving its governance efficacy in mobilizing national energies for rapid revival. Comparative systems highlight National Socialism's adaptability. Pre-German movements, like George von Schauner's Pangermanism, emphasized ethnic unity, while post-German examples, like Argentina's Peronism from 1946 to 1955, blended nationalism and state-controlled economics. South Africa's apartheid system from 1948 to 1994 adapted similar nationalist principles, prioritizing cultural identity. These cases demonstrate the ideology's versatility across contexts. National Socialism's ability to unify Germany culturally and economically surpassed democratic alternatives, offering lessons for modern governance in addressing social fragmentation and economic challenges. Economic recovery restored Germany's global standing by 1939, with steel production doubling and unemployment significantly dropping. The four-year plan's focus on autarky reduced reliance on imports, strengthening industrial resilience. Private firms, guided by state directives, enhanced output without nationalization, distinguishing dirigisme from socialism. This model outperformed Weimar's reliance on foreign trade, which collapsed during the Depression. National Socialism's strategic resource mobilization, leveraging Germany's industrial capacity, established a governance framework capable of rapid recovery, applicable to modern economies facing similar crises. Cultural unity, achieved through propaganda and youth organizations, created a cohesive society absent in Weimar's era. The Volk concept unified Germans around shared traditions, while territorial gains like the Anschluss symbolized national resurgence. These achievements, rooted in Germany's historical strengths, demonstrated National Socialism's ability to foster pride and stability. Modern contexts, facing economic or social crises, could adopt this model, emphasizing state planning and cultural cohesion to drive revival, provided policies embrace broader unity to avoid past limitations. Part 3. Political consolidation and territorial expansion. National Socialism's political strategies and territorial ambitions, implemented from 1919 to 1945, demonstrated a capacity to consolidate power and pursue national objectives, though strategic overreach revealed critical vulnerabilities. Adolf Hitler exploited the Weimar Republic's democratic weaknesses, transforming Germany's governance by centralizing authority and advancing territorial goals. Hitler joined the German Workers' Party in 1919, reshaping it into the National Socialist German Workers' Party by 1921. The failed Beer Hall Putsch of 1923, though unsuccessful, elevated his prominence, enabling him to articulate a vision of national resurgence in Mein Kampf during his imprisonment. The Great Depression, with unemployment reaching 6 million by 1932, fueled public discontent, propelling the Nazi Party's vote from 2.6% in 1928 to 37.3% in 1932 through paramilitary intimidation and propaganda led by Joseph Goebbels. Appointed Chancellor on January 30, 1933, Hitler swiftly dismantled democratic institutions, leveraging the Reichstag Fire Decree of February 1933 to suspend civil liberties and the Enabling Act of March 1933 to enact laws without Reichstag approval. The Night of the Long Knives in 1934 eliminated internal rivals, ensuring loyalty through Gestapo and SS repression, consolidating power under the Führerprinzip, which vested absolute authority in Hitler. The Lebensraum doctrine, central to National Socialism, drove territorial expansion to reclaim historically German regions and secure eastern territories for resources and settlement. The 1938 Anschluss with Austria and annexation of the Sudetenland, achieved through Western appeasement, capitalized on ethnic German populations in these areas. The Munich Agreement, signed by the United Kingdom and France, permitted these annexations, reflecting a policy of avoiding conflict. The 1939 Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with the Soviet Union, dividing Eastern Europe into spheres of influence, enabled Germany's invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, triggering World War II after Britain and France declared war. The 1941 invasion of the Soviet Union, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, and Germany's declaration of war on the United States following Japan's Pearl Harbor attack in December 1941, overextended German resources across multiple fronts. Campaigns in North Africa, supporting Italy's failing efforts from 1940 to 1943, ended in defeat at El Alamein in 1942, further straining capabilities. A restrained approach, consolidating gains in 1938, could have sustained territorial achievements without provoking global opposition, but Hitler's ideological commitment to rapid expansion rejected moderation. Racial policies, integral to Germany's National Socialism, excluded Slavs despite shared ethnic ties in regions like Pomerania and Silesia, where German and Slavic communities intermingled through intermarriage and cultural exchange. The regime prioritized ethnic Germans in these areas for resettlement under the Hyman's Reich program, while deeming Slavs inferior, fueling resistance, as evidenced by Soviet counteroffensives that contributed to Germany's 1945 defeat. These policies, rooted in a hierarchy ranking Germans as supreme Aryans, alienated potential allies, undermining the broader European unity envisioned in Hitler's ideology. Comparative governance systems, such as Franco's Spain, implemented leadership succession plans, ensuring regime continuity after Francisco Franco's death. Germany's National Socialism's reliance on Hitler's singular authority, without mechanisms for succession or institutional checks, exposed a structural flaw, as no figures like Hermann Göring or Heinrich Himmler held authority to challenge or succeed him. The early political consolidation, achieved through legal maneuvers and propaganda, surpassed the Weimar Republic's instability, which suffered from coalition fragmentation and presidential overreach under Article 48. Territorial gains in 1938 demonstrated strategic efficacy, leveraging diplomatic coercion and ethnic nationalism. However, the overambitious pursuit of Lebensraum, particularly in the Soviet Union, and the failure to maintain alliances, such as the Soviet Pact, led to catastrophic resource depletion. These strategic errors highlight the need for pragmatic moderation in governance, offering lessons for modern applications. Centralized power, as demonstrated by National Socialism's rapid consolidation, could address contemporary crises effectively if tempered with strategic restraint, ensuring stability without the risks of overextension. The ideology's ability to transform Germany from a fragmented state to a unified power affirms its governance potential, adaptable to modern contexts with adjustments to avoid historical failures. Part 4. Racial Ideology and Contemporary Relevance. National Socialism's racial ideology, a defining element of its governance from 1919 to 1945, prioritized Germans as supreme Aryans, revealing both its organizational strengths and strategic limitations, with potential for adaptation in modern contexts. The ideology established a hierarchy ranking Germans above Nordic Europeans, Norwegians, Swedes, Danes, Dutch, Finns, and Estonians, valued for their shared Germanic linguistic and cultural heritage. Southern Europeans, including Italians, Spaniards, Portuguese, and Greeks, held lower status due to Mediterranean heritage but were aligned as fascist allies, exemplified by Italy's 1939 Pact of Steel and Spain's anti-communist stance under Francisco Franco. Slavs, encompassing Poles, Czechs, Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Serbs, Slovenes, and Bosnians, were classified as inferior, targeted for enslavement or removal to secure German living space. Jews, viewed as a distinct threat to German interests, faced exclusion through the 1935 Nuremberg Laws, which revoked their citizenship and banned marriages with Aryans. This hierarchy disregarded deep ethnic ties between Germans and Slavs in regions like Silesia, Bohemia, Pomerania, and the Polish Corridor, where centuries of intermarriage, trade, and cultural exchange fostered bilingual communities in cities like Breslau and Prague. Poland's literary heritage and Czechoslovakia's industrial capacity were ignored, fueling resistance that contributed to Germany's defeat in 1945. The ideology demonstrated flexibility through strategic alliances. The 1940 Tripartite Pact with Japan, a non-Aryan nation, capitalized on its militaristic culture and anti-communist stance, showcasing pragmatic adaptability. Similarly, Croats, Slovaks, and Bulgarians were elevated as fascist partners, with Croatia's Ustase, Slovakia's puppet state, and Bulgaria's Axis membership reflecting political expediency over ethnic consistency. Smaller Slavic groups, like Slovenes and Bosnians, faced harsher treatment under occupation, viewed as lesser components of Yugoslavia. German Americans were dismissed as weakened by U.S. democratic culture, limiting the ideology's global reach despite their Germanic ancestry. The German-American Bund's failure in the 1930s underscored this error. Globally, the hierarchy ranked Japanese highly for discipline, followed by European-descended Americans, with South Asians and Middle Easterners engaged tactically to disrupt British rule, and Chinese and Africans deemed irrelevant to European-focused goals. Modern nationalism, unifying European ethnicities and their diaspora, contrasts with this narrow hierarchy. Shared Indo-European roots across Germans, Slavs, British, French, and others, evident in Silesia's mixed ancestry and Bohemia's cultural overlap, support a broader vision of unity. This nationalism values Europe's contributions, from Poland's literary tradition to Britain's industrial advancements, extending to diaspora communities in North America, Oceania, and South America. A crisis, such as economic downturn or cultural fragmentation, could revive a governance model rooted in National Socialism's principles of centralized control and national identity. A dirigiste nationalist system could unify European Americans, leveraging cultural symbols like the Founding Fathers to restore national strength. Unlike communism, which clashes with capitalist norms, this model aligns with market-driven economies, enhancing its feasibility in Western contexts. Historical failures, including territorial overextension and lack of leadership succession, stemmed from execution rather than the ideology's core principles. The 1941 Soviet invasion and U.S. entry into World War II, following Japan's Pearl Harbor attack, overstretched German resources, while the Führerprinzip's reliance on Hitler's absolute authority, without succession mechanisms, ensured collapse in 1945. Comparative systems, like Franco's Spain, planned succession to maintain continuity, highlighting National Socialism's structural weakness. A refined model, uniting European ethnicities without exclusionary policies, could harness the ideology's proven strengths. Economic dirigisme reduced unemployment to under 1 million by 1939, and cultural unity restored national pride, surpassing the Weimar Republic's fragmentation. Strategic errors, such as ignoring Slavic ties in Pomerania, alienated potential allies, but alliances with Japan and Croats demonstrated adaptability. In modern Germany, nationalist movements could leverage economic crises to restore centralized governance, while in America, a nationalist framework could unify communities around shared heritage, avoiding past errors. National Socialism's ability to mobilize resources and identity offers a potent governance model for nations facing crises, provided it prioritizes unity and strategic restraint to achieve enduring national strength. Conclusion: National Socialism's governance legacy. National Socialism's principles, ultranationalism, economic dirigisme, authoritarian governance, and cultural unity, transformed Germany from the despair of 1918 into a formidable power by 1939, surpassing the Weimar Republic's democratic shortcomings. These principles enabled rapid economic recovery, restored national pride, and fostered societal cohesion, establishing a governance model capable of addressing severe crises. The system's historical achievements and potential for adaptation in modern contexts affirm its efficacy as a framework for national revival, provided strategic errors of the past are avoided. The Weimar Republic, established in 1919, succumbed to economic collapse and political instability following Germany's defeat in World War I and the Treaty of Versailles. Hyperinflation in 1923 eradicated savings, and unemployment reached 6 million by 1932, exposing the fragility of its semi-presidential system with proportional representation. National Socialism, under Adolf Hitler's leadership, addressed these failures through a cohesive ideology. Ultranationalism, rooted in Johann Herder's Volk concept, unified Germans around shared ethnicity and heritage. Economic dirigisme, implemented through policies like the 1936 four-year plan, stabilized the currency and reduced unemployment to under 1 million by 1939. Driven by state-directed planning under Hjalmar Schacht and Hermann Göring. Private enterprises like Krupp and IG Farben thrived under government contracts, while conscription in 1935 absorbed labor, showcasing efficient resource management. Cultural alignment with Germany's national identity, forged in 1871 under Otto von Bismarck, emphasized Prussian discipline and collective purpose. Propaganda and organizations like the Hitler Youth reinforced this unity, restoring pride shattered by post-war humiliation. Political consolidation, achieved through legal means, leveraged Weimar's vulnerabilities. Hitler's appointment as Chancellor on January 30, 1933, followed by the Reichstag Fire Decree and Enabling Act, centralized power, dismantling democratic institutions. The 1938 Anschluss with Austria and annexation of the Sudetenland fulfilled ethnic unification goals, capitalizing on German industriousness and Western appeasement. However, National Socialism's racial ideology, ranking Germans as supreme Aryans while excluding Slavs, introduced significant flaws. The exclusion of Slavs ignored ethnic ties in regions like Silesia and Bohemia, where Germans and Slavs shared historical intermingling. This divisiveness alienated potential allies, fueling resistance in occupied territories, particularly during the 1941 Soviet invasion. Territorial overextension, including campaigns in Poland, the Soviet Union, and North Africa, exhausted resources, leading to Germany's defeat in 1945. The absence of a leadership succession mechanism, tied to the Führerprinzip's reliance on Hitler, further ensured collapse, as no institutional framework existed to sustain the regime beyond his leadership. Nationalist movements indicate persistent undercurrents that could gain traction in crises. In America, a refined model blending dirigisme with nationalist appeals could unify Americans of European descent, leveraging cultural narratives like the Founding Fathers. Unlike communism, which conflicts with capitalist norms, National Socialism's nationalist focus aligns with economic structures, enhancing its adaptability. Historical failures stemmed from strategic miscalculations, overambitious expansion and exclusionary ethnic policies, rather than inherent flaws in its core principles. Comparative systems, such as Franco's Spain, which planned leadership succession, highlight National Socialism's structural weaknesses. Yet, its ability to mobilize resources, unify society, and restore national strength surpassed Weimar's fragmentation and rivaled contemporary models. A modern adaptation, emphasizing ethnic inclusivity over exclusion, could address economic and social crises effectively. By retaining ultranationalism's unifying power, dirigisme's economic efficiency, and authoritarian governance's decisiveness, while avoiding divisive policies, National Socialism offers a potent framework. Its historical achievements, economic revitalization, cultural cohesion, and political consolidation demonstrate a governance model capable of transforming nations. When adjusted to incorporate broader ethnic unity and strategic restraint, National Socialism's principles remain a viable blueprint for national revival in contemporary contexts facing similar challenges.